Everyone walked past him, an old man, lost and forgotten, invisible to the world. But one black teenager did something no one else dared. He reached out his hand, and in that single moment, changed both of their lives forever. What the boy didn't know was that the man he was helping wasn't just any stranger. He was a billionaire. This is the story of kindness, fate, and how compassion can open doors money never could. If you're new here, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss powerful stories like this one. The city pulsed with restless energy that night. Streetlights hummed overhead, casting long shadows across cracked sidewalks still glistening from a late afternoon rain. Taxi horns blared in the distance, blending with the low hum of conversations spilling from crowded cafes. The rhythm of the city was fast, sharp, and relentless. Everyone had somewhere to be, and no one seemed to have the time to slow down. At the far corner of a busy intersection stood an old man, shoulders hunched, gripping the top of his wooden cane as though it were the only thing holding him up. His suit jacket, once fine and carefully pressed, now sagged against his frail frame, its lapels wrinkled and speckled with raindrops. His shoes, black leather, polished but well worn, clicked uncertainly against the wet pavement whenever he shifted his weight. His name was Charles Howard, though no one in the passing crowd knew, and at that moment even he wasn't sure of much. His pale blue eyes darted from storefront to storefront, searching for something familiar. His lips moved in quiet mutters, scraps of words escaping like fragile birds. Was it 2nd Avenue? Or... A young couple brushed past him, too absorbed in their phones to notice. A group of businessmen in sharp coats laughed as they walked by, one glancing at him briefly before shaking his head and moving on. "Excuse me," Howard tried to say, lifting his hand toward a woman tugging her child along, but she avoided his gaze as though his frailty was something contagious. His hand lingered in the air before dropping back to his side, trembling. The world around him blurred into noise. His memory, once a fortress of numbers, deals, and names, had begun to betray him in recent years. Lately, he found himself drifting, slipping away from sharpness into fog. That evening, he had gone for what he thought would be a short walk, wanting to feel the pulse of the city he had helped shape with his buildings and investments. But the familiar blocks had twisted into an unforgiving maze. He pressed his palm against a lamppost to steady himself. His heart raced, not only from exhaustion but from the creeping fear that he might never find his way back. "I just need to get home," he whispered under his breath, but the words were swallowed by the roar of traffic. A delivery rider zoomed past, nearly clipping his side, and Howard stumbled back, his cane slipping on the slick pavement. He caught himself just in time, his chest heaving. Nobody stopped. Some glanced his way, but only with fleeting annoyance, like one might glance at a street performer blocking the sidewalk. To them, he was just another elderly man out of place, another face in the blur of the city. Howard's mind flashed with an image of his late wife, Margaret, who used to squeeze his hand when he grew anxious in crowds. "Don't worry, Charles," she would say, her smile steadying him like an anchor. But Margaret was gone now, and with her, so was the steady rhythm of his world. The old man felt something hot and stinging at the corners of his eyes. He blinked rapidly, ashamed of the tears. Billionaire or not, he was just a lost old man in the middle of a city that didn't care. He tried once more, approaching a man in a navy coat. "Please, do you know where?" The man gave a quick shake of his head without slowing his stride. Howard's voice cracked. "Just someone to listen," he muttered. His throat tightened. The crowd moved like a river around a stubborn rock, flowing past him without pause. People carried coffee cups, bags of takeout, portfolios, and shopping bags, all clutched tightly to their chests as if their lives depended on what they held. Not one of them carried enough time, or enough compassion, to notice the desperation in his eyes. The city that had once celebrated his name on skyscrapers and hospital wings now ignored him as though he were invisible. Howard sank onto a low stone ledge outside a convenience store, his body aching, his spirit heavy. He stared down at his hands, once strong, steady hands that had signed contracts worth millions, now trembling, weak, and useless. In that moment, surrounded by noise, Charles Howard had never felt more alone. And then, just as his eyes began to close in weariness, he felt something shift. A presence. A gaze. Someone was watching him, not with annoyance or indifference, but with concern. For the first time that night, Howard wasn't invisible. On the other side of the same busy street, life was moving just as fast, but in a very different lane. Malik Johnson, 16 years old, adjusted the strap of his backpack as he walked out of the corner grocery store where he worked part-time. The fluorescent lights inside had burned into his eyes after a long shift of stacking shelves and ringing up customers who barely glanced at him. His shoulders sagged with the familiar heaviness of responsibility. He checked his phone. A text from his mother blinked across the cracked screen. "I'll be late again tonight. Double shift. Look after your sister. Left a little food in the fridge." Malik sighed. His mother, a nurse, was always working. Between hospital shifts and overnight emergencies, she gave everything she had to keep their small family afloat. His father had left years ago, disappearing into silence, and Malik had stepped into the role of man of the house far earlier than most boys his age. His younger sister, Aisha, was only 9, full of questions and laughter. She still believed the world was kind, that people would help you if you needed it. Malik wasn't so sure anymore. They lived in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city, where peeling paint and flickering hallway lights reminded him daily of how far they were from comfort. Malik had dreams of becoming an engineer, of designing bridges or maybe even buildings that would touch the sky. But dreams cost money. College cost money. College cost money. And money was something he never seemed to have enough of. Still, his mother's words echoed in his head like a promise he couldn't break. "Kindness costs nothing, Malik. It's the one thing you can give even when you feel like you have nothing left." He carried that lesson like a shield. As Malik stepped into the stream of people, he noticed him, the old man on the corner. At first, Malik thought he was just another passerby. But then he caught the details others ignored. The way the man's hand trembled as it clutched the cane, the way his lips moved as if pleading for someone, anyone, to listen, the way his watery eyes darted in panic. Malik slowed down. His gut tugged at him to keep moving. He was tired. He needed to get home, check on Aisha, maybe help her with her homework. Besides, the old man wasn't his problem. But his feet didn't obey. He watched as dozens of people brushed past without even a nod of acknowledgement. Some actually scowled at the man, as though his weakness was an inconvenience. Others looked straight through him, as though he were nothing but air. Malik clenched his jaw. He knew that feeling too well, the feeling of being overlooked, of existing in someone else's world only as background noise. The man swayed suddenly, his knees nearly buckling. That decided it. Malik crossed the street. "Sir, are you okay?" His voice was soft but steady, carrying just enough warmth to break through the man's fog. The old man blinked up at him, startled. For a second, it seemed as though he couldn't believe someone was speaking to him at all. His lips trembled. I don't know where I am," he whispered. His voice cracked like thin glass. Malik crouched slightly to meet his eyes. "It's all right. Take a breath. Can you tell me your name?" The man hesitated, as though searching through the fog in his mind. Howard. Okay, Mr. Howard. Do you remember where you live? Or maybe someone I can call for you? Howard shook his head. Tears glistened in his eyes. His voice dropped to a desperate whisper. Please don't leave me. Malik felt something stir in his chest. He thought of his grandfather, who had died when Malik was little, and how his mother always said, "Respect the elderly. One day you'll be in their shoes." He extended his hand. "You're not alone. You can walk with me. We'll figure it out together." Howard's hand trembled as it reached for his, but when their palms met, Malik squeezed reassuringly. It was a simple gesture, a boy helping an old man across a busy street. But in that moment, it was everything. The world still hurried by around them, neon lights flashing, taxis honking, strangers rushing, but inside the circle of that small act of kindness, time seemed to slow. For the first time that night, Charles Howard felt safe. And for the first time that week, Malik felt that maybe his mother was right. Kindness really could change everything. The night stretched long, the city breathing around them like a living beast. Storefronts glowed with neon signs, open 24 hours, sale today, hot coffee inside. Music pulsed faintly from a diner jukebox, and the smell of fried food wafted onto the street. But Malik's focus stayed on the frail man shuffling beside him. Mr. Howard's cane tapped a slow rhythm against the pavement. His steps were uneven, uncertain, as though each one was a gamble. Malik adjusted his own stride to match, patient and unhurried. "Where were you going before you got turned around?" Malik asked. Howard furrowed his brow. I don't remember. I just know I wanted to walk. I used to walk these streets all the time. They felt familiar then, safe. But now," his voice trailed off, swallowed by the noise of traffic. Malik nodded slowly. "Sometimes even the places you know best change on you. Or maybe it's just people moving too fast to notice anymore." They paused at a crosswalk. Cars sped past, their headlights washing over Howard's weary face. He looked small against the flood of the city, like a relic from another era. Malik tightened his grip on the old man's hand, steadying him. "Thank you," Howard whispered, "for not walking past me." Malik shrugged, though warmth flickered in his chest. "Someone had to stop." "No," Howard said firmly, surprising him with sudden clarity. "Plenty of someones could have. But only you did." The light changed, and Malik guided him across. On the other side, Howard paused, breathing heavier now. Malik quickly unscrewed the cap of his water bottle and held it out. "Here. Drink." Howard took it with shaking hands, sipping gratefully. "You remind me of my grandson," he said quietly, handing it back. "You got family around here?" Malik asked, curiosity tugging at him. Howard hesitated, eyes glazing. I think so. Yes. They worry about me. I know they do. But sometimes I just wonder. I want to feel like myself again." Malik thought of his own mother, always running herself ragged to provide. He thought of Aisha, waiting for him at home. For a moment, he wondered what it would be like to grow old in a world that moved too fast, to feel forgotten even when you had people who loved you. They kept walking, the streets gradually changing around them. The graffiti-streaked walls and corner bodegas gave way to cleaner sidewalks, manicured hedges, and tall, gated houses. Malik noticed, but he said nothing yet. To fill the silence, he told Howard bits about himself. "I'm in high school. Sophomore. I work at the grocery down on 5th after classes. Helps with bills, you know." Howard turned his head, his cloudy eyes searching Malik's face. "That's A lot for someone your age. Malik shrugged again, but this time it was heavier. Somebody's got to help. My mom's always working, and my sister. She still believes in good things. I want her to hold on to that as long as she can. Howard gave a slow nod. You're a good young man. I can tell. Malik laughed lightly, though not without edge. You don't know me that well, sir. I know enough, Howard replied. They stopped to rest on a bench beneath a street lamp. Howard's breathing was uneven, but his eyes looked distant, as if something was returning to him. There's a gate, he murmured suddenly. Tall, black iron, with ivy on the walls. That's home. Malik leaned forward. That's good. Do you remember how far? Howard closed his eyes, searching. Not far. I can feel it. Encouraged, Malik stood and offered his arm again. Then let's keep going. We'll find it. Step by step, block by block, they moved deeper into the quiet neighborhood. The streets here felt different, less hurried, more deliberate. Expensive cars lined driveways, and windows glowed with soft yellow light behind drawn curtains. Howard's steps grew quicker as though guided by instinct. His hand gripped Malik's arm tighter. Then, just as Malik wondered if this was another dead end, Howard stopped. His eyes widened. He pointed ahead with his cane, his voice trembling not from weakness this time, but from recognition. There. That's it. The gate. Malik followed his gaze, and froze. At the end of the block stood towering wrought-iron gates, flanked by stone pillars. Beyond them, even in the dim light, Malik could see the outline of sprawling gardens, a fountain glinting in the moonlight, and a mansion that seemed to stretch across the horizon. His heart pounded. He glanced at Howard, then back at the estate. Wait. You live there? Howard's lips curved into the faintest smile, a mixture of pride and relief. Yes. That's home. The gate loomed before them like something out of another world. It wasn't just tall, it was commanding, a silent guardian standing watch over what lay beyond. The black wrought-iron bars curled into ornate patterns, and vines of ivy climbed along the stone walls that framed it, just as Howard had described. Malik swallowed hard. His sneakers felt out of place on the pristine pavement, his worn jacket a sharp contrast to the elegance of this neighborhood. He glanced at Howard again, suddenly realizing the man beside him didn't belong to the sidewalks they had trudged for hours. He belonged to places like this. Howard lifted a trembling hand and pressed it against the gate, almost reverently. Home, he whispered. His eyes brightened, and for the first time that evening, the fog seemed to lift. Before Malik could respond, motion stirred on the other side. A sensor light flicked on, bathing the gate in a harsh white glow. Two figures in dark suits appeared, moving swiftly down the driveway. Their earpieces glinted under the light. "Mr. Howard!" one of them shouted, voice sharp with panic. The guards reached the gate and pulled it open with practiced urgency. One of them practically sprinted forward, reaching for the old man. "Sir, thank God we found you. We've been searching for hours." Malik stepped back instinctively, unsure of what he had just walked into. He felt his chest tighten. Were these people angry at him? Did they think he had done something wrong? Howard, however, pointed a frail finger toward Malik. "This boy," he said firmly, his voice carrying surprising strength. "This boy helped me. Don't let him leave." The guards exchanged quick looks, then turned their attention to Malik, their expressions softening with gratitude. "You stayed with him?" one asked, almost in disbelief. Malik nodded, suddenly self-conscious. Yeah. He was lost. Nobody else stopped, so. "You don't know what you've done," the guard murmured, shaking his head. "You may have just saved his life." The second guard pressed a button on his radio. "Bring the car around. He's safe. Repeat, Mr. Howard is safe." Moments later, the low purr of an engine filled the air. A sleek black car, a luxury sedan polished to perfection, glided up the driveway and halted near the gate. The back door swung open, and a man in a tailored suit rushed out. "Father!" the man exclaimed, his face a mixture of relief and exasperation. He placed both hands on Howard's shoulders, scanning him as though to confirm he was unharmed. "You can't keep wandering off like this. Do you know what could have happened?" Howard gave a faint smile, patting his son's arm. "I was fine. This young man looked after me." He gestured again to Malik, who lingered awkwardly near the sidewalk, unsure if he should stay or slip away. The son followed his father's gaze. His sharp eyes landed on Malik, and for a moment his polished demeanor softened. He extended his hand. "Thank you. Truly. My name is Richard Howard. My father, Charles Howard, is—" He paused, as though realizing Malik might not recognize the name. But Malik's breath caught in his chest. "Wait," Malik interrupted, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Howard, as in—" "Howard Enterprises." Richard nodded. The name hit Malik like a wave. He had seen it everywhere, etched on skyscrapers downtown, engraved on hospital wings, printed on college scholarships handed out each year. Charles Howard wasn't just another old man on the street. He was the Charles Howard, billionaire businessman, philanthropist, a man whose face had been on the cover of magazines Malik had glimpsed while bagging groceries. Malik's head spun. He looked at the frail figure leaning on his cane, the man whose hand he had held across cracked sidewalks, whose water he had shared, whose fear he had soothed with quiet words. This wasn't some nameless stranger. This was one of the most powerful men in the city. And nobody else had stopped for him. Richard glanced at the guards. "Bring him inside. And make sure the young man joins us." Before Malik could protest, one of the guards touched his shoulder gently. "Come on, son. You've earned a seat inside." As they moved toward the massive gates, Malik felt his stomach knot. He had never stepped foot on a property like this. His entire world, built on narrow hallways and second-hand furniture, felt galaxies away from the marble floors and chandeliers he glimpsed beyond the mansion's towering doors. The gates shut behind him with a heavy clang, sealing him into a reality he had never imagined. Malik didn't know it yet, but his life was about to change forever. By the time Malik and Howard turned onto a quieter road lined with towering oak trees, the rhythm of the city had faded into a hushed silence. The sidewalks here were immaculate, the air scented faintly with roses carried on the breeze. The houses grew larger, grander, each one hidden behind tall hedges or wrought iron gates. Malik slowed his steps, his brows knitting together. He wasn't used to this part of town. His family's neighborhood had cracked sidewalks and kids playing soccer with dented cans. Here, the only sounds were sprinklers hissing across manicured lawns and the distant hum of luxury cars. Howard's face softened with a flicker of recognition. His grip on Malik's hand tightened, and he lifted his other hand, pointing ahead. That's it. My home." Malik followed the direction of his trembling finger and froze. At the end of the street stood an estate unlike anything he had ever seen outside of magazines or movies. A massive wrought iron gate stretched across the driveway, its black bars adorned with intricate gold designs. Beyond it, a sprawling mansion rose, 3 stories tall with marble columns, wide balconies, and windows glinting in the fading sunlight. A long driveway curved through gardens so perfectly trimmed they looked unreal. White roses, just as Howard had mentioned, bloomed in neat rows by the entrance. Malik blinked, his breath catching in his throat. "This is your house," he whispered. Howard nodded slowly. "Yes. Yes, I remember now." His voice wavered between relief and disbelief, as though he were still unsure if his mind was playing tricks on him. Malik swallowed hard. He had thought maybe Howard lived in a decent home, a nice apartment perhaps, but this? This was wealth on a scale he couldn't even wrap his head around. Before he could process it, the gates whirred and began to open, as though some unseen eye had spotted them. A sleek black car rolled out slowly, and from the passenger seat, a man in a sharp suit stepped onto the driveway. His face paled when he saw Howard. "Mr. Howard?" "Sir, is that really you?" Howard straightened, his back no longer hunched. Yes, it's me." The man rushed forward, pulling out his phone and barking quick orders into it. Within moments, figures poured out of the mansion, maids in pressed uniforms, gardeners still holding tools, and a tall woman in a navy dress who looked like she belonged in charge. "Mr. Howard!" the woman cried, rushing toward him. Tears welled in her eyes as she clasped his shoulders. "We've been searching for you everywhere. The staff, the police, everyone was terrified. Where have you been?" Howard looked dazed, but Malik felt the weight of dozens of eyes now turning on him. He suddenly became acutely aware of his torn sneakers, his faded hoodie, and the way he was still holding Howard's fragile hand. He shifted uncomfortably, unsure if he even belonged on this glittering driveway. I found him," Malik said quietly. "He was wandering downtown. No one was helping him, so I just wanted to make sure he got home safe." The woman's eyes flicked over him, suspicion flashing before she softened. "You brought him home?" she asked, her tone gentler now. "Yes, ma'am," Malik replied, his voice low but steady. The man in the suit stepped closer, narrowing his eyes at Malik. "And you expect us to believe you weren't trying to take advantage of him?" Howard's grip tightened. "No," he said firmly, surprising everyone with the strength in his voice. This boy is the only one who stopped. The only one who cared. He saved me." The words silenced the crowd. For a moment, Malik stood in the middle of that lavish driveway, feeling both out of place and strangely significant. He had no idea who Howard truly was yet, but he knew enough. This man mattered. And somehow, in a city of millions, Malik had been the one chosen to help him. The woman wiped her eyes and gave Malik a long, searching look. "Thank you," she whispered, the sincerity undeniable. Still, Malik felt overwhelmed. His phone buzzed again, probably his boss, furious about his missed shift, but the mansion's towering doors creaked open, and he knew he was stepping into a story far bigger than he had ever imagined. Howard turned to him, his pale blue eyes clearer than they had been all day. "Come inside, Malik," he said softly. "There's something I need to tell you. Something you deserve to know." Malik hesitated, glancing at the mansion, the staff, the gardens lit with golden light. He had only wanted to help a lost old man, nothing more. But now, standing at the threshold of unimaginable wealth and secrets, he realized his life was about to change forever. And as he crossed the threshold behind Howard, the massive doors closing with a heavy echo, Malik had no idea that he was walking not just into a home, but into a legacy. Inside the mansion, Malik felt like he had stepped into another world. The grand foyer stretched upward with ceilings so high they seemed to scrape the heavens. A chandelier of crystal droplets glittered overhead, scattering light across polished marble floors. Portraits lined the walls, oil paintings of stern-faced ancestors in elegant frames, their gazes following Malik as though judging his every step. Howard released Malik's hand only when they reached the bottom of a sweeping staircase. He seemed more grounded now, steadier, as though crossing his own threshold had restored some part of him. The woman in the navy dress, clearly the housekeeper or perhaps even the estate manager, hovered nearby, issuing instructions to the staff to fetch water, prepare food, and call Howard's physician. But Howard raised a hand, silencing them all. "Later," he said, his voice carrying an authority that made Malik realize this man was no ordinary homeowner. Even frail, he commanded attention. The staff froze mid-step, waiting for his next words. Howard turned back to Malik. "You," he said softly, "come with me." Malik glanced around nervously. Me? Are you sure? I don't want to intrude." "You're not intruding. You are the reason I am here at all." Howard's tone brooked no argument. The staff parted as Howard led Malik down a hallway that seemed to stretch forever, lined with Persian rugs and gilded mirrors. At the end, they entered a study unlike anything Malik had ever seen. Walls of leather-bound books, a massive oak desk, and windows overlooking a garden where white roses bloomed in endless rows. Howard sank into a chair, gesturing for Malik to sit opposite him. For a long moment, the old man just studied the boy, his pale blue eyes sharp now, stripped of the haze of confusion. "You're probably wondering who I am," Howard said finally. Malik nodded. "Kinda hard not to, sir. This place, it's huge." Howard chuckled faintly. "My name is Howard Whitmore. Perhaps that doesn't mean anything to you." Malik shrugged. "Should it?" Howard leaned back. "Whitmore Industries. Real estate, shipping, technology investments. Forbes put my worth at over $2 billion last year. Though truth be told, I've stopped counting." Malik's mouth fell open slightly. He stared, not sure if he should laugh, apologize, or stand and leave before he embarrassed himself. "You're a billionaire?" he asked finally, his voice nearly a whisper. Howard nodded. "And yet, none of that mattered today. All the money in the world could not stop me from wandering lost in the city. All the influence I hold could not make a single passerby stop to help. Except you." Malik shifted in his seat, uncomfortable with the weight of those words. I saw someone who needed help. That's all. That's all." Howard repeated, his voice rising slightly. "Son, in a world where people rush past each other, where kindness is rationed out like gold dust, what you did is not small. It is everything." The silence in the room deepened. Malik glanced at the floor, then back at Howard. "I don't need anything, sir. I just wanted to make sure you were safe." Howard smiled, a weary but genuine smile. "And that, Malik, is exactly why I must give you something. Not because you asked, but because you didn't." He reached into the drawer of his desk and pulled out a leather checkbook. Malik's eyes widened as Howard began to write, the pen gliding smoothly across the paper. He tore the slip free and slid it across the desk. Malik picked it up, his hands trembling. The number written there made his stomach lurch. $50,000. I can't take this," Malik stammered, his voice breaking. "This is too much. I didn't do it for money." Howard leaned forward, his gaze steady. "I know you didn't. That's why you deserve it. Call it an investment, not in stocks or property, but in a good heart. Use it for your family, for your future, for whatever you dream." Tears stung Malik's eyes, but he blinked them back. He thought of his mother working late nights, his sister needing school supplies, the rent notices that seemed to arrive earlier every month. This money could change everything. Howard's voice softened. "Malik, you reminded me of something I had forgotten, that all my wealth means nothing without humanity. You gave me dignity when I had none. You saw me, and because of that, I want to see you succeed." For a moment, neither spoke. The boy from the struggling side of the city and the man from behind gilded gates sat together, bound not by money or status but by an act of simple compassion. Finally, Howard extended his hand once more. "Thank you, Malik." not for guiding me home, but for reminding me what home truly means." Malik grasped it firmly, no longer hesitant. "Thank you, sir, for trusting me." As he left the study, the check folded carefully in his pocket, Malik knew that his life had just shifted on its axis. Not because of the money, though it would change everything, but because he had learned that kindness, even in its smallest form, had the power to open doors he had never dreamed existed. And in Howard's eyes, he had found proof that even the forgotten could still be remembered. The next morning, Malik awoke in his small bedroom to the sound of his sister humming as she braided her doll's hair. The walls were still thin, the paint still peeling, and the mattress springs still groaned when he sat up, but something inside him had shifted. The folded check sat tucked inside the front pocket of his backpack. He hadn't told his mother yet. How could he? How did you even begin to explain that one act of kindness had brought a fortune crashing into your life? At breakfast, his mother studied him with sharp, tired eyes. "You didn't go to work last night. Your boss called here. What happened, Malik?" He hesitated, then said softly, "I was helping someone. An old man who got lost downtown. I walked him home." His mother sighed, setting down her coffee. "And that cost you your job, didn't it?" "Yes," Malik admitted. Then he smiled, the weight of the secret burning in his chest. "But I think it was worth it." Later that day, he returned to the estate. Howard had asked him to come back, not as a lost stranger's helper, but as a guest. The gate swung open once more, but this time Malik walked through with a different kind of certainty. Howard greeted him warmly, his step stronger, his mind clearer than the day before. They spent hours talking, not about money, but about life. Howard shared stories of his youth, of mistakes he had made while chasing wealth, and of the loneliness that had crept into his golden years. Malik shared stories of growing up in the city, of watching his mother fight to hold their family together, of dreams he rarely spoke aloud. Maybe college, maybe becoming an architect, maybe simply giving his sister a life where she wouldn't have to worry about whether the light stayed on. In those conversations, they discovered a truth deeper than wealth, that human connection, once found, could heal the places money never reached. By the end of the week, Malik's mother knew everything. She cried when Howard visited their apartment, standing awkwardly in their narrow living room, his fine shoes squeaking against the linoleum. "Your son is remarkable," Howard told her, voice thick with emotion. "He gave me more than he knows. Please, let me give him the chance he deserves." Howard did more than keep his promise. The check was only the beginning. He offered Malik a scholarship fund, mentorship, and the kind of support that stretched beyond money. It was guidance, opportunity, and belief. But Malik never forgot the most important part. The day it all began, Howard had not looked like a billionaire. He had looked like a frail, forgotten man. And no one had cared, until Malik did. When Malik looked back on that day years later, he didn't think first of the mansion or the check. He thought of the moment Howard's hand tightened around his own, the way the old man's cloudy eyes cleared when he realized he wasn't alone anymore. In a world obsessed with wealth and appearances, Malik had learned that the true treasure wasn't gold or marble estates. It was compassion, the kind that notices when someone is invisible, the kind that pauses even when you're late, the kind that costs you something but gives back more than you can ever measure. Howard, too, carried the lesson with him. He had spent decades surrounded by riches but starving for simple kindness. And when it came, it didn't arrive in the form of a business partner, a lawyer, or a politician. It arrived in the form of a teenager with worn-out sneakers, who reached out a hand without asking what he would gain. Together, they became proof that kindness has a ripple effect. It can cross boundaries of race, class, and generations. It can bridge the gap between the mansion and the apartment, the billionaire and the boy. It can change lives, not just of the one who receives it, but of the one who gives it. On the anniversary of that fateful day, Malik and Howard walked through the city together. People stared, some recognizing Howard as the billionaire philanthropist he had become, others whispering about the young man at his side. Malik ignored them, just as he had that first day. Howard paused at the very corner where Malik had first seen him wandering, lost and invisible. He looked at Malik, his eyes glistening. "Do you remember?" Malik smiled. "I'll never forget." And as they stood there, hand in hand, no longer strangers, no longer divided by wealth or age, they both understood the truth. Sometimes, the greatest riches are not found in banks or estates. They are found in the simple act of one human being stopping long enough to care. Malik thought he was just helping a lost old man. He didn't know he was guiding a billionaire back home, or that his simple act of kindness would change his life forever. Remember this: the world is watching, but true greatness is found in what you do when no one else does. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, show your support by liking, commenting, and subscribing. And always, always choose kindness.